Go.
Hi, welcome to our postmodern Kenpo review of lessons, the first 10 yellow belts of American Kenpo. And this is our introduction to the idea that the first 10 yellow belt techniques or lessons are constructs. That in our view, they highlight the way that the syllabus of 154 techniques, the 12 sets, I think it's 12, 13 sets, and the multiple forms are the entire formulation of the system. Formulation as a system. And you can use formulation as the way Mr. Parker has presented it. But if you look at the broad picture, it's going to be, you're going to see eventually that the entire system is a formulation.
Also in this and talking about it is we wanted to start taking a look at Capture Twigs and looking at how it's both a trickle up and a trickle down a little bit later on in the video. At first, we're going to break it down, some of the concepts and actions and lessons within Capture Twigs, and then move on and talk about how there's relations. It's not an island unto itself, that there's both trickle ups and trickle downs from the rest of the syllabus.
And the first one is a concept that's used outside of Kenpo, but we don't use it very much in Kenpo. It's called the third leg. And the definition of the third leg is any place, say I'm in a horse dance or I'm in a neutral bow, where if I were to fall, as if it was a triangle, my feet do create one line, and you come out to a point. If I were to fall that way, my face would contact at the third leg point. If I would fall backwards, again, the triangle goes to that way, which is a diamond, and my head, the back of my head would bounce off the ground, and the third leg. Now, when we drive somebody into the ground, we're going to drive them towards that third leg. And that's for a future discussion. If you want to talk about it, you just ask us and we'll talk about it. This is a concept. Now, the nice thing about it is in Captured Twigs, we now have a third leg body, because the body behind us is going to do two things. It's going to give us friction. We're going to use friction to go across the person. We're actually going to sit down on their leg, and we're going to borrow their balance, because they're on both legs, as we step out. Okay? So, third leg definition, that point on the ground where your opponent or your face will bounce off, the back of your head will fall off.
Yeah.
The back of my head doesn't fall off very often, I'm sorry. Or the back of your head will hit the ground, or your opponent. Same thing with your opponent. Now, we're going to do an extension to triggered salute, and that will eventually drive the opponent to a third leg, but we don't do it yet. Okay? So now we're going to show you the body maneuver that comes from Captured Twigs. I'm the catalyst, he's the response. So what happens is when you step out to where we're going to show you to step out, you actually get the ability to sit down on the leg of the person. And also thing is, when you do this, when he steps out, if he were to step out straight to 3, he's going to create a gap that I can take advantage of. I'm not real good at hip throwing, but if somebody knows jiu-jitsu or judo, they can definitely take advantage of that. So what happens is when you step to 3 o'clock, catalyst, response, and his intent is nowhere to be found. I mean, he can trap my arm, he can try and hit me in the groin, but I've got room to stop it, and then I've got room to drive through him. And there's the third leg over there. If I were to trip him, he would go to that ground. So he's going to step out, and here is the borrowed balance, and I am the third leg body. That way. Okay? Hands, steps to there. Oh, now he's sitting on my leg.
I'm literally sitting.
And there is no gap between us. This is still a hug catalyst. Okay? There's still a hug catalyst. When you step to 3 o'clock, it's no longer a hug catalyst. You change that into something that can be taken advantage of. That sound good? All right. These are the lessons that we learned back from 1991-92. So there's the body maneuver, which is he's gonna alter his depth. Oh, right, you're right. He's gonna alter his width and his depth by stepping out. And he's moved me. That's the body maneuver. Now sit on my leg, and then I'm stuck. I'm canceled. Okay? Did you want to do the whole thing?
Oh,
or
well,
wait until afterwards?
there's actually two body maneuvers in this. There's the initial body maneuver with my response, which was to step out and to close the gap. There's nothing in between us. Also, as we talk about the third leg, his leg literally becomes my third leg by me sitting on him. He's the third leg body. Also, in that, I'm going to be borrowing balance. With the pin to my body and sitting on his leg, I'm borrowing his balance. If I really wanted to, I could actually lift up my legs and use him as I would a normal chair. Also, the second body maneuver is going to come up after we do what's called the tension cat. Seagung, would you mind? As he has his catalyst and now my intent. Pin, and as I step, there's no gap. I'm going to sit on his leg. Then comes the next body maneuver. As I rotate, I'm actually pushing him away from me and spreading out his arms. As I go to the tension cat, which is just a rotation of my hips, I'm not drawing the foot to me. I'm just creating tension in my leg. Here's the next body maneuver, which is the first contact, which pushes him away. Now I'm in this tension cat, which creates a new line. I'm not on the previous line that I was on. I am now going to create a line on line 4, going in and through him as I use my body maneuver once again to push. Comments?
Okay, one of the things you're going to find in the future if you're working with Chris and I, Pastor Stewart, I'm sorry, Professor, Pastor, he's got a lot of titles, it's fun, is that how he just did the pattern is different from the way that I would do the pattern. My mass, my height, the length of my legs is very important. So he's going to do the catalyst, and I'm going to show you what we learned a long time ago. He did it the way it's going to work for him. Pin, expose, step out, come around, nail the groin, right? Pull that hand like that, right there. Turn, get him started. Come here, and I will slide to the ankle because I love the ankle. Stomp through the ankle. And then I'm simply going to, from here, keep the contact, and I'm just going to, what did you want? What would you say? Sword hammer? So, as we originally learned it, we're going to step in a very defined way. We're going to move that line back. He did it the way it works for him because the driving me down, he wants to make me smaller. I want to make him move back so that I have more room to extend my arms. This is how you tailor a technique. That's how you tailor it, by the individual person, not by changing one motion, adding a knee strike, whatever. Okay, just a bugaboo for me. Pet peeve.
It is a pet peeve of mine as well. Tailoring is not formulation, and formulation is not tailoring. What was just shown was what we would consider true tailoring. Tailoring the height, width, and depth of the individual student and the technique. What works for them, as was already seen. As we go from the tension cat and that body maneuver, now we're creating what's called a hip line angle improve. When we talk about the hip line, if we draw a line on what we call line 2 from our hips, as I rotate my hips, I can create a new angle of motion, a new action. As we just saw before, as I stepped to 730 rather than to 9, my hips now, I'm no longer on what we call line 2. I am now on line 3. As I go to the tension cat, I am now towards 230. And my step now is going to create line 4, which is actually to 430. Each of those motions with my hip creates a new line. I'm improving my angle towards my attacker to use my body in the best way possible to manipulate his height, width, and depth.
And for me, Same principle, same idea right here. Because I'm big, I open, expand, because I was originally taught to throw that away. But if I do this, then I start that process, throw it away, same idea, boom, I'm now faced on, well, that's about 230. And then I step here, and I keep stepping, and I keep moving, line 2, in these increments. But that's me, bigger body, about the same weight, but there's a different emphasis, musculature, skeleton. So he does it his way, I do it my way, but we teach the basic pattern or the basic lesson as it is.
Also with hip line improve, the hip line angle improve is actually something that we're going to get from several other lessons, several other patterns in Kenpo. The first one today that we wanted to talk about, we've been looking at capture twigs, but in many ways, this introduction, synthesis in yellow belt, shows up later on in orange and purple in crashing and crushing. Crashing wings, crushing hammer. The angle improve is super important in order to affect the rest of the technique. For instance, Professor, would you mind showing crashing wings?
Okay, again, this step is prevalent in both crashing and crushing. So in crashing wings, I simply want, from the arms free, I want to step out, sit on him, and strike with the elbows. Now here we're going to get another tension cat, and we're going to get a cat around. But how I do that, watch my left foot. I'm going to shift my weight as I do this, because we have formulas. I'm going to come around, there's my cat. I am now, because of my hip angle improvement, I am now gone to the outside of my opponent's body, struck the arms, gone to the outside, and then I can come around into that reverse bow. Okay, again, step out, sink, all right? Come across, shift weight, heel. Don't pivot on the heel, some people say. No, we pivot on the heel. And then I'm going to come to my tension cat, because that's a pushing off cat. Push off, cat around. And there's the rest of the pattern. Or, yeah, there's the rest of the pattern.
Go ahead and let's go and show them that on the body.
Yeah, this way.
Well, this way.
Oh, let's do what? Your feet are too wide. Your feet are too wide.
And from here, watch Chris disappear. If you've ever seen, there's a particular test video that is sometimes seen, or there's a video of Mr. Parker doing this technique, and at a moment you go, where did he go? He went bye-bye. Why? Because you affected hip line to create really the throw in crashing wings. Now in crushing hammer, I'll go and do the technique in the air for them. We get the opposite. You want to talk about true opposites and reverses, is in the formulation that we get between crashing and crushing. In a moment, the professor is going to talk about how this was formulated and put into syllabuses in Orange County. But at least when we start looking at crushing hammer, professor just had stepped what? To the left, shifted weight, tension cat to be able to do the cat around, right? Now in crushing hammer, it's the same thing, but on the opposite side. We'll answer the question, well, Chris, why? Why is it the same? We'll get there. The crushing hammer, right? We're going to step out once again, shift weight. We've got, as the professor said, formulas. Tension cat to stepping around. Same thing, both sides. But notice it's the consistent use of hip angle improve to affect the hip-to-hip contact between me and my opponent. Professor, would you like to talk about the Orange County connection?
Well, the Orange County connection is where I started in '79. There were 4 techniques, lessons that were pushed together to form the system. Crashing and crushing were done in Orange Belt one after the other. Repeating and reversing mace in Purple Belt were done one after the other. And I personally had a lot of problems trying to remember both. Well, do I step left or right? Do I do this or do I do this? You know, it created, and I wasn't the only one. Back in that day, I wasn't the only person who had a lot of problems, especially during tests, the high stress of tests, to not do reversing when they called repeating, to not do crashing when they called crushing. They are separate in terms of the line or the linear progression of the system. I'm not saying anything bad about this. It is the way I still have some problems with reversing and repeating. I learned those when I was 18 years old, and that was 41 years ago. So yeah, to go on the crushing hammer thing, we had when we were doing crashing, we had a sort of you attacked me odd thing. I'm trying not to step on Chris's feet, and I didn't know where his feet were, so we fixed that. Crashing and crushing, the left or right. Do I step left or do I step right? Why do I step left? Why do I step right? I think a lot of that has to do with, in bear hug catalysts, are my arms pinned or my arms free? We know that if we look at the syllabus as a formulation all the way through it, we're going to recognize that there are times when there are patterns that say step this way when your arms are free, step that way when your arms are pinned. Well, captured, we step left. Crashing, we step left. But crashing, arms are free, we step left. Captured, arms are pinned, we step left. But why? Well, because we want to accomplish certain things. It's in the lesson of what's happening. Crushing hammer, pin, step to the right. Tripping arrow, arms free, step to the left. But we're talking about certain concepts that are involved. So whether you step to the left or step to the right is really only up to what you want to accomplish with that pattern. And we're not trying to complete a pattern. We do that when we train, but we want to remember that these are nothing but lessons that have lessons within them.
And with that, in talking about this and talking about consistent lessons, we've looked at how captured Twigs has been trickled up in the rest of the system. Crashing wings, crushing hammer, tripping arrow. We could go on with the lessons that trickle up from captured Twigs. But there's also a trickle down in that captured Twigs teaches us something called nudging the line and creating a new line off of the original line, which we actually get and really focus on the lesson in Form 5. In Form 5, we have several sets of techniques in which we go from one to the other and create a new line off of the original line, which we see all the way back in captured Twigs. That's why when we talk about the yellow belt techniques as constructs, as lessons, because we see them as a synthesis of the rest of the system. We know historically that the yellow belt techniques came after most of the definition of the rest of the 154. So we see that Mr. Parker and whoever else was in the research and development team for yellow belt was borrowing things as far back or later, such as Form 5. And so it's both a trickle up and a trickle down. Professor, did you want to talk about the Form 5 connection before we got to extensions?
Well, we were discussing this earlier, and then if I learned Form 5 about, 14, 15 years. I went officially and learned it 15 years after I retested for first. And nudge the line was part of what Pat talked about. Are you going to do you want to learn Form 5 as competition or as application? So nudge the line is actually a backfill all the way to yellow belt, because we're taking the concept, the action. This is an action where we go from here to here, and we do that quite a few times. We go from here to here. Now there's an imaginary line between old me and new me, or me, whatever. And so it's a backfill of information that goes all the way into the yellow belt techniques, and it works into orange belt, and it works into purple belt, and all kinds of things. The one thing we don't talk about very much is why. Why was it backfilled? I don't know why Pat decided to wait to tell me to nudge the line, but it's one of those wonderful little kernels and nuggets of information, and you're like, oh, that clarifies everything back there. Now I see why you wanted me to step back instead of step out. Because when it comes to a bear hug, anytime there's a bear hug and the attacker does not commit, all that attacker is doing is allowing you to complete the pattern. He's not helping you. So if I come here and I'm just non-committal and there's a big old gap and he steps out to 3 o'clock, okay, he steps out to 3 o'clock. Go ahead. Step out to 3 o'clock. Oh, dude. This right here pulls me off weight, but there's also that gap again right there. And he's going to get the pattern off. Problem is, what's my intent? Right? Am I going to pick him up? I'm going to push him into a wall. I'm going to pick him up and throw him. What am I going to do with him? Catalyst and intent. So that non-committal attack, or that non-body contact, is important to understand as the attacker. Because if you step out to 3, you step out to 9 in these bear hugs. Same thing true for tripping arrow. You're not going to nudge the line. You're just going to create that 7, that inverted 7. And this is one of the things we talked about in Orange County way back in 79 and 80, was that the whole thing was a here to here. So that's a lazy V, or a 7. Okay. It explained what we were doing, but it didn't explain why, because our attacks were non-committed. A bear hug is a bear hug. A push is a push. That's a push, not an attempted push.
Exactly, which leads us into our next and last kind of comment on the lessons from Capture Twigs, is it helps to introduce the idea of hip line angle improve, which the student then would get all the way in first Brown. In first Brown, in the extension for triggered salute. Professor, if you would, we'll just take it from the uppercut. And I'd like to show the angle improve from this direction. So just from here. Okay. From here, after I've done all this fun stuff, I want to affect his rear leg. Well, I can't get there from here. So how do I get there? I need to angle improve with my feet.
One of the ways that people were going to do this is to just simply do a rear crossover and then buckle out whatever they can buckle out. And the problem is you can't buckle out. If my weight goes to my left foot, you're going to break my ankle and break your ankle. So this has to go here. Stability, mobility. You're going to affect my stability. You're either going to, if you side kick my leg, you're going to do this. You don't have the extension. Why are you going to do it? You're going to do something else. So that hip line that he's talking about is going to change his 6 to 12 stance into a
line 4, which is going to be from 10:30 to 4:30 line.
And that is the hip line improvement, an angle improvement.
So I don't want to go towards his 6 to just try and buckle it out with the pin. If I come here and I just try and do a step to reverse, yes, I've affected him, but not in the way that I want to. He can grab my leg. If he's a jiu-jitsu guy, I'm in deep doo-doo. But if
a Kenpo guy.
Well, yeah, if he's a Kenpo guy, right, form 6, yeah. But if we take it from here, and I really want to broaden his base, use my hip line to create a buckle, which is what I want to do, is as I do so, as I go create that new line, I want to step, not to 6. I'm going to use that new line 4, 10:30 to 4:30, and buckle it, which allows me then to continue the extension. Well, since he's there, I'm going to palm heel instead of getting the poke. Yeah. And then I can get the knee and then continue the extension.
Now let me do it.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
how he steps is very interesting because that's the way it works for him. Okay, he's attacking me high. I'm attacking lower, right around the knee. So he's got the hand here. Boom, 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 boom. All the wonderful stuff. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, right? Oh, look. Boom. Turns his head. Angle improve. Go right to that leg. Right at where the stability and the mobility. And then I don't have to finish the pattern, do I?
No.
I can do whatever I want at that point, especially
Yeah.
if there's somebody else behind me. I'm like, I'm going to drive that guy into the other guy. So again, boom, boom. Oh, face. Thanks for the face. Good, because that's going to come into here. As I do this to extend him out, and then I do this, I shouldn't stand up. Then I'm just simply going to come to here. Right? And then I'm going to repeat the process, and then boom. Oh, I'm into something else. You know?
Yeah.
I'm into all of the brown belt techniques. It's kind of fun. It's the angle improve that sets that up.
And it's the nudging the line that really sets it up. He's nudged the line. It's not just a simple step through reverse. We're creating a new line in the process of movement. This is why when we talk about concepts and actions, this is both a concept that relates to an action. This isn't just head knowledge. This is, what do I want to do with his base? I want to do that. If I just do a regular step through reverse, I'm just going to spread his width and not also cancel height and depth. It goes back to cancel height, cancel width, cancel depth gives us time. Thank you, Associate Master O'Brien, Clyde, for that one. But that was my comments and my lessons from Captured Twigs. The filter up and filter down, looking at the concept of the third leg, borrowed balance, the two body maneuvers, our use of a tension cat to give us that hip line angle improve, which then relates to the rest of the syllabus.
And the second topic that we had, and I'm looking at the board, third leg body. Again, in the extension for triggered salute, as you angle improve and you're using that body, that's the third leg body. He's eventually going to go to the ground. Now, I didn't have him go to the ground. I was just rotating. But my methods are to extend my arms and then gather in. I love techniques, PMK patterns, where I get to extend my arms and then bring them back out. Like a slinky. I'm a slinky arm guy. What can I say? And I think that's it. I don't think we can say any more. We're going to have a second video. Are we gonna chop up the video for the step, or is it going to all go in the same thing?
Two separate videos.
Okay, we can cut out this conversation right here.
Yeah.
So there you go. This is how brown belt techniques and extensions backfill, and how Form 5 backfill all the way down to yellow belt and into orange and into purple.